Most people don't fear skipping breakfast. In fact, many wear it like a badge of productivity. Less eating, more control. But let me ask you something important. What does your body hear when breakfast never arrives? Because every morning, your biology expects fuel. Hormones rise, blood sugars carefully regulated, and your brain prepares for energy. Then, nothing comes. At first, the body responds brilliantly. It releases stored glucose from the liver to keep you functional, sharp enough to work, think, and move. You may even feel a surprising burst of alertness. But medicine teaches us an important principle. Just because the body can adapt doesn't always mean it benefits. I once observed a patient, a 44-year-old manager who proudly skipped breakfast for weeks. He told me, "Doctor, I don't even get hungry anymore." What he didn't realize was that his hunger hormones were already recalibrating, quietly lowering their signals. The absence of hunger is not always a sign of balance. Sometimes, it's a sign the body is entering conservation mode. As Thomas Edison once warned, the doctor of the future will focus on prevention rather than treatment. And understanding what happens next is exactly that, prevention. Because within just a few days, your hormones begin shifting in ways most people never notice. Let's talk about that. The first thing to understand is this: when breakfast disappears, your body does not immediately see it as a problem. It sees it as a signal. Within the first 24 to 72 hours, one hormone rises quietly, cortisol, often called the alertness hormone. It helps release stored glucose so your brain stays functional. That is why some people say, "I actually feel sharper without breakfast." And for a short time, that can be true. But here is what many don't realize. Elevated cortisol also tells the body one important message: energy might be unpredictable. Conserve when necessary. At the same time, your hunger hormone ghrelin begins adjusting its schedule. Hunger is heavily based on habit. When you stop eating in the morning, ghrelin slowly stops signaling as strongly. This is why appetite may drop after a few days. But physicians look deeper than appetite, because another process is beginning beneath the surface. Your body starts relying more heavily on stored energy. Think of it like switching from daily income to dipping into savings. Efficient? Yes. Harmless long-term? That depends. I once monitored a patient who skipped breakfast during a demanding project. By day 3, she told me, "I'm not hungry, but I feel strangely tense." Her labs later showed elevated stress markers, not dangerous, but revealing. Remember this clinical truth: the body whispers changes long before it shows damage. And what happens next is where metabolism begins making real decisions. Because after the first few days, your body must choose what kind of fuel it trusts most. Let's step into that phase. By the end of the first week, your body stops waiting for breakfast. It starts planning without it. This is where metabolism becomes strategic. Since morning glucose is no longer arriving, your system increases its ability to pull energy from stored sources, first glycogen, and gradually stored fat. On the surface, this sounds like good news, and for some people it can be. You may notice more stable morning energy, less automatic hunger, fewer sudden crashes, but medicine always asks a deeper question. What is the body sacrificing to maintain that stability? Because while fat usage may rise, prolonged morning fasting can also signal the body to become more energy efficient, sometimes lowering metabolic rates slightly to preserve resources. Think of it like a phone shifting into low power mode. Still functional, just more conservative. A patient once described it perfectly on day 6. "Doctor, I feel steady but not powerful." That distinction matters. As renowned physician Dr. Ansel Keys noted, the human body is remarkably adaptable. But adaptation does not always equal optimization. Now here is something many people overlook. Your brain is also adjusting. Without predictable morning fuel, concentration may feel sharp some days, yet mentally heavier on others, especially during demanding tasks. This variability is a clue that your internal energy timing is being rewritten. But the most important shift of this phase is happening quietly in your bloodstream. Insulin sensitivity begins changing. And depending on the person, this can move in a helpful or occasionally stressful direction. Because biology, by the second week, your body has fully accepted one reality. Morning fuel is no longer guaranteed. So it becomes smarter and slightly more protective. One of the biggest changes doctors observe during this phase is improved fat access for energy. Your system is no longer relying on constant incoming calories. It is learning to generate power internally. Many people notice fewer intense hunger waves, a lighter physical feeling, more controlled eating later in the day. But here is the clinical nuance. most social media never mentions, the body prefers survival over performance. If it senses prolonged gaps in nourishment, it may begin lowering unnecessary energy output subtly, reducing spontaneous movement, conserving calories, and sometimes slowing metabolic pace. Not dramatically, but intelligently. As famed survival researcher Dr. Walter Cannon explained, the body strives constantly to maintain balance, and balance sometimes means becoming cautious with energy. Now let me share something I often hear around day 10, doctor. My mornings feel clear, but by afternoon, I'm unusually drained. This happens because your brain, which consumes enormous energy, has been running on internally managed fuel for hours. Eventually, demand catches up. Another quiet shift during this window involves your stress response. Repeated fasting periods can keep cortisol slightly elevated in some individuals. Not dangerous for most healthy people, but enough to influence mood, patience, and mental stamina. You might feel more focused, yet less tolerant of disruption. But don't mistake this phase as negative. For many metabolically healthy adults, the body is building flexibility, the ability to function without constant feeding. However, the most revealing stage arrives near the third week, because this is when physicians begin asking an important question. Is the body thriving or merely coping? Let's go there next. By now, your body has stopped protesting. Skipping breakfast no longer feels unusual. It feels normal. And this is exactly where physicians start paying closer attention. Because when a behavior becomes automatic, we must ask whether the body is benefiting or simply becoming efficient at coping. Around this phase, many people experience something encouraging. Hunger becomes predictable. Blood sugar swings often reduce. Some notice mild fat loss. Mornings may feel mentally sharp. This is the advantage of metabolic flexibility. Your body can operate without constant incoming fuel. But here is the part most productivity culture never discusses. Adaptation can sometimes mask strain. I once followed a patient, a 46-year-old entrepreneur, who proudly told me, "Doctor, I feel unstoppable in the mornings." Yet by late afternoon, his focus dropped dramatically, and he compensated with excessive caffeine. His body wasn't failing, it was negotiating. As Nobel Prize-winning physiologist August Krog said, the organism must be understood as a whole. When energy is delayed daily, the body often redistributes resources, prioritizing essential organs like the brain and heart while becoming more conservative elsewhere. For some individuals, especially those under heavy stress or poor sleep, prolonged morning fasting may amplify irritability or mental fatigue. Not everyone experiences this, but biologically it is explainable. Now here is a subtle signal doctors watch for. Meal size begins creeping upward later in the day. The brain is remarkably skilled at recovering missed calories, sometimes without you noticing. So the question becomes less about skipping breakfast, and more about what the entire 24-hour pattern looks like. Because the body never evaluates one meal. It evaluates survival across the full day. And as we approach the 20th day, one final realization tends to emerge, one that changes how many people think about breakfast forever. Let's finish with that. By day 20, your body has made a decision. Skipping breakfast is no longer an experiment. It is now part of your metabolic identity. But here's the professional truth I want you to understand. Skipping breakfast is neither universally good nor universally harmful. What matters is how your body responds. Some people develop stronger metabolic flexibility, the ability to function smoothly without constant meals. Others unknowingly increase stress load, overeat later, or run on elevated cortisol for too many hours. Medicine has moved away from one-size-fits-all rules for this reason. As legendary physician Sir William Osler said, "The good physician treats the disease. The great physician treats the patient who has the disease." Your biology is personal. Now let me give you the clinical takeaway I share with patients. If skipping breakfast leads to stable energy, healthy lab markers, controlled appetite, good sleep, it may be working with your physiology. But if you notice persistent fatigue, irritability, brain fog, heavy evening eating, poor concentration, your body may not be thriving. It may simply be coping. Remember this principle: the body keeps score, even when you feel fine. One of my patients said something profound after trying this for a month. "Doctor, I realize discipline isn't about eating less. It's about eating intelligently." Exactly, because the goal is never to follow trends. The goal is metabolic stability, protecting the heart, brain, hormones, and future health. Let me leave you with a perspective few people consider. Breakfast is not just a meal. It is a signal that tells your body whether energy is predictable or uncertain. And the body always performs best in an environment it can trust. So instead of asking, should everyone skip breakfast, ask a better question. What pattern allows my body to perform, not just survive? Your physiology is always communicating. The real advantage belongs to those who learn how to listen.